Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rabbi Stephen Epstein with my 10-minute Torah. Rashbi in the house. So somebody was asking me, what is this Rashbi thing? Why do I keep calling myself Rashbi, okay? Well, Rashbi is an acronym. You know, you've heard of Rashi and Rambam. I forget what Rashi stands for, but Rambam, Resh, Mem, Beit Mem, Rav, Moshe, Ben, Maimon. Okay, so that's an acrylic. That's acrylic. That's what is it called? An acrostic, whatever. When you use the initials for a name. So Rashbi, Resh, Shin, Beit, Yud, Rav, Shmuel, Ben, Yehoshua. That's my Hebrew name. I say Rashbi, right? Yeah, I know, a little egotistical, but you know, okay, it is what it is. Thank you for putting up with me. So, couple of things. First of all, you know, there is someone special in my life, and I want to give a shout out to that person because they do so much. And you know, it's the Rebbitzin. It's my wife, Chris. We go to services on a Friday night, on a Saturday morning, and you know, she is there and she's helping set up. She goes out and she gets stuff if there's not enough for Kiddush. A couple of weeks ago, when we were going to do the three Torahs, she went off and got lox and bagels, you know. And I should have promoted it a little bit more for the food, you know. And it's my fault that I did, and it's on me that I didn't. But you know, she does a lot, and I just want to give a shout out, you know. And I love her so much. You know, she's such a big part of my life. We've been together for over 35 years, and it's just wonderful. And she's just such a wonderful person, and I felt like a shout out to her is just way overdue. So, second, January 13th, our mid-year meeting, our mid-year general meeting. Please be there. Please come. I know some of you, well, why am I going to be there? Okay, the reason you want to be there is because, folks, we are in a growth mode. The synagogue is coming back. And it's not just words. Okay, 2.5 years ago, we'd have a Friday night service. We'd look around, and there were times when we didn't have a minyan. We didn't have 10 people or even 9 for a Friday night service. Saturday morning, and I kid you not, there were times when there were 3 or 4 people there. Saturday morning, okay? Now, we are having minyans. The Torah is getting rolled. I don't have to go in and roll it anymore because there it is. Because we've done a Torah read. We've had a Torah service. We've had 9. You know, sometimes it's a short minyan of 9 people. A lot of times it's 8. You know, we're not there yet. But you know, I got to tell you, it's a lot better than 3 or 4. So you know, and this is because of you folks. This is because you're getting more involved. So let's come. Let's really put it. This is your synagogue too. And it reflects who you are. Make it your own. You know, we've done some great things. We have music during Friday and Saturday morning. So I just can't say enough. January 13th, 10 o'clock, the second Sunday of January. Please be there. Okay, so let's talk about the new book of the Torah, Sh'mot, names. This is the book of Exodus. And, you know, it's really kind of interesting because this first portion, it's one portion. Maybe take you, I don't know, you read the commentary and you read the portion as you go along. It's maybe an hour and a half. Well, guess what? Cecil B. DeMille made a 3-hour movie out of that one portion. It's kind of funny. But it basically goes through the setup for Moses being born and leaving Egypt and coming back. So first we have names, Shemot. Who are the names? The names of the souls that came down from Canaan to Egypt. And the coming down, it's not just, you know, because maybe it's an elevation, maybe it's a higher latitude, coming down in terms of spirituality. They came from Canaan, where they were just kind of a family on their own, in their own little homestead, practicing Torah, and they come down to Egypt. Yes, it was in the middle of a famine. Yes, the grass was greener, it really was, in the pastures there, and they could thrive, and they did thrive, but they were kind of on the outskirts of paganism. And thrive they did. The Hebrews thrived. They became integrated into all parts of Egyptian society. You know, 70 souls came down, and basically we thrive. And that's what we do. That's what Hebrews do. That's what we Israelites, we Jews do. We thrive. It doesn't matter. If you look at what happened during the Holocaust, okay, our numbers were in half. You know, they killed 6 million of us. Here we are, about 50, 60 years later, and that population is back where it was, and we continue to thrive. There are more and more Jews being born because we stick to Torah. That's what we do. Now, these Jews didn't know anything about Torah because they'd been enslaved. A new Pharaoh came to the fore, And this is interpreted in a few different ways. Some people say that the pharaohs just forgot about what Joseph did, or they just weren't appreciated, or they felt threatened by the fact that this was an outside party. Now, in the Sansino Chumash, the one that we use in the synagogue, what's used as the conservative, or was used as the conservative Chumash, the late great Rabbi Dr. Joseph Hirsch, who was the chief rabbi of the British Empire back in the early 20th century, he comments that the dynasty, the family of pharaohs that was in power when Joseph came down, were he called the Hyksos. He calls them the shepherd kings. But what they were they were conquerors. They came in and they conquered Egypt and they basically took over and they ran. Now, of course, as time went on, they became Egyptians because they became integrated in the society. But let's face it, they were still an alien people. So what happened in the intervening, say, 120 years or so, or whenever after Joseph died and after the brothers died off and everybody forgot what they had done, those people, that dynasty was kicked out, and from arose a native dynasty. The dynasty that was overthrown took back over. So they did not remember Joseph. They once again, outsiders, right? The Hebrews, here they were multiplying, they were being fruitful, they were multiplying, they were in all aspects of Egyptian society. They became suspicious. They were xenophobic. Most peoples at that time were. And the Pharaoh just got this idea in his head. He's like, well, they're going to take over. We have anybody coming in trying to fight us. They're going to join with them to fight us. Why? I mean, they were living and thriving, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. And unfortunately, this set the stage going forward for the next 3,000 years. This is the way people saw us. They saw us as alien, as foreign. They were suspicious. We're not one of them. If they're not one of them, you're either for us or against us. Well, that's what happened. And they forgot the fact that Joseph came in and basically saved the Egyptian economy by intervening with the grain and everything. Forgot the fact that his brothers came and they were big machers in the Egyptian society and they ran things very well. They were what happened in Germany in the 1930s, right? So, they saw the Jews thriving and they weren't because, again, because of our principles. So what do? They say, we got to do something. Let's get rid of them. So Pharaoh, outright genocide or whatever you want to call it, just eliminating them, that wouldn't have done well with the Egyptian society because Egyptians may have been a little suspicious, but again, they knew these people. These were their neighbors. So they kind of did it insidiously, a little slowly, right? What did they do? First, they started to enslave them. Then they started to do work that wasn't meaningful. Maybe build the granaries, okay? But then they just had them work. They had them work in the worst places in Egypt where you just couldn't build. You had swamp, you had marsh. It was just to break their back. That's what they did. And that didn't work. So what did they do? They said, well, let's get rid of the firstborn males. And this is where Moses comes in. This is where Moses' parents, Amram and Jochebed, they'd already had Miriam, they'd already had Aaron. It's 3 years between Aaron and Moshe that edict was decreed, and they said, we got to save him. Puts him in a little basket of reeds, puts pitch and stuff on it to make it waterproof, sends it down the Nile, and who finds the basket? But Pharaoh's daughter wants to adopt him, make him his own, make him Egyptian. But Moses never forgot he was a Hebrew. He knew he was a Hebrew. Now, the Chumash really doesn't go into that in depth. It doesn't say, how did they know? How did he know? And why did Pharaoh allow this? Why would Pharaoh allow a Hebrew to be part of his court? Well, he was obviously indulging his daughter. But this is where that one midrash, that one rabbinical, the folklore that fills in the gaps of Torah, because that's an obvious question. The guy was a Hebrew, and here's Pharaoh's astrologer saying, well, somebody was just born, according to our calculations, who's going to unseat you. So what does Pharaoh do? He sees the little baby Monios. That was his Egyptian's name, Monios. We know him, of course, as Moshe, being taken from the water. So he sees him going for like his crown, just kind of, a little kid reaching for a crown. Like he sees a sparkly thing, he wants it. And Pharaoh, being all paranoid from what his astrologer said, this kid's going to unseat me. And they said, well, wait a minute, let's give him a test, because pagans are superstitious. Astrology and black cats and all that stuff. So they have these two covered pans in front of them. One's got gold, one's got hot coals. And he said, let's see what he reaches for. And, Moses, Monios, he's reaching for the gold. And the angel Gabriel comes down, smacks his hand so he touches the coal. It's hot. He wants to cool it off, puts it in his mouth, burns his tongue, and hence the speech impediment that got him for life. So when Hashem approaches him and says, I want you to go save the Hebrews, he's like, I can't talk. And Hashem is like, well, we've got Aaron. Now, there's a lot of other things that go on, and we'll cover this in upcoming sessions because I want to keep this to 10, 11 minutes. But you got to wonder, and this is something that always kind of fascinated me. Here's Hashem telling Moses to go out, and you got the burning bush, that became an angel, that became God, and Moses is like, well, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that, I don't want to do it, I can't talk, and God's like, wait, dude, come on, I'm God, don't worry about it, And yet Moses was the greatest of them all. He was the greatest prophet, had a constant communication with Hashem, unlike most other prophets. And yet here was the person that doubted himself. Sages, I'll leave you with this. Sages say it's because he was so humble. Okay, so that's this week's 10-minute Torah from Rashbi. Please, see you in services, and please, January 13th, 10 o'clock. We'll see you there. Shabbat Shalom. And thank you again for listening.